Grown Black folks talk, a little bit of good tactical sense. Now, I actually have two videos today. They're not exactly two sides of the same coin, but they're just things that you need to know about, okay? This is not going to be popular, and I need to tell you anyway. Learning how to talk to grieving people is a very important skill. And it does not matter what they are grieving exactly. If, and this is primarily for Black women, if it is acceptable to have said before May 5th that a good number of Black men are violent and irrational and out of control, it does not make logical sense to mock them in their grief. Because if this is your conclusion, good tactical sense says that you don't throw oil on a fire already burning, particularly when that fire has been amped up. This is not a video about Kevin Samuels. We've closed that topic. I realize that people have their feelings about Kevin Samuels. And of course, as a Christian, I am limited in certain ways. The Bible says you're not to celebrate the death of your enemy. Even if it is your enemy, you're not to do it. The Bible also says not to mock the grief of other people. Now, it also says, weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. Now, there are limits to this. If the person was someone who was against God and what they put out, you don't necessarily have to cry over the passing away of someone you find a wicked person. However, that does not give you the excuse to mock those grieving. Kevin Samuels has a mom and a daughter, and we Black women are supposed to be about Black women. So imagine what his mom's going through. Imagine what his daughter's going through. But if you don't want to imagine any of that because you're ready to wipe out from your emotional concerns every woman that may love Kevin Samuels, because Mama clearly does. Consider for you good tactical sense. If you believe that Black men are immoral, irrational, and violent, it does not make any sense to pile on them in their grief. And you are adding fuel to a fire that already is stoked up to the point that 4 Black women are being dismissed from the earth per day. It's not a good idea for you to do that. So, if you believe Kevin Samuels did a great deal of damage, imagine what 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, a million of his followers incensed can do. Imagine that. You know, the other thing about this that needs to be said, you don't have to coddle people to be decent to them. And if you want to move into decent circles of people that have empathy, if you want to eventually be married to a decent mate, then you have to maintain standards of decency. Now, some people will call this respectability politics. Again, this is good tactical sense in an extremely dangerous world. Not all Black women have a quick ticket out of the Black community. Now, we talked about the art of professional party crashing, part 3 yesterday. And we're going to talk about something else that relates to that. We're going to have another good tactical sense that I think you're going to enjoy a lot more. But it is necessary to understand that some of us may be in a position where we feel like we can go off on members of the manosphere, but do we care about our sisters who still have to deal with the blowback from that, who do not have a way out? Just because I can go get $1 trillion of information and be able to be in a position where I can do something with it, I have young ladies that I mentor that are not in that position. But if some angry young man who was angry, violent, and immoral before Mr. Kevin Samuels, who was the closest thing to a father he ever had, according to many of you, I read these comments, she's got to deal with that because she can't get out. I'm already out because of gentrification. I actually didn't leave. The community left me. But it's not good tactical sense to be publicly mocking men who are in their grief over someone who was important to them. I can understand the impulse, but it's not good tactical sense for Black women. Because again, if it is your line that goodly numbers of Black men are immoral, violent, and irrational, and that was true up to the 5th of May, then what sense does it make the 6th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th to be publicly mocking the grief of these men? What sense does that make? Now, everybody has a right to their own opinion. Again, I realize in a lot of circles, this is not going to be necessarily popular. I don't care. And the reason that I don't care is because my life does not depend on being popular. I'm not trying to do what we talked about yesterday. I'm not trying to be a cult builder. So I can say what I need to say, and whoever doesn't like it, doesn't like it. That's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. We're not in a cult relationship. I'm not going to be your goddess. There's probably going to be a lot of things coming up that I'm going to say that you don't agree with. I haven't even addressed Roe versus Wade because we do have to kind of see. I won't address that till that becomes actual ruling. I don't deal with draft opinions because I know the Constitution well enough to know an opinion is an opinion until it becomes a ruling. We'll deal with it then. There are going to be a lot of unpopular things that I'm going to have to say over the course of the time that I have this channel, if we're going to be honest. So if you disagree, that's okay. Remain respectful, or you will be converted to permanent listener. But other than that, we can disagree. But for your own tactical realities, and for Black women and girls who may have to live around more men who are grieving Kevin Samuels right now, it does not make tactical sense to mock people who are grieving. Some of them include his mom and his daughter. Some of them include men who, from their mind, lost the only father that they felt that they ever had. That's a very dangerous thing to do, to talk to the grief of a man who's lost his father, even if it's not his dad. But the point is, people have a right to their emotions. You have a right to how you feel about Kevin Samuels. Every man has a right to how he feels about Kevin Samuels. Now, when we cross the line into action, we can talk about right and wrong. But in a situation that is already, we talk about Black femicide, we talk about domestic abuse, we talk about domestic violence, situation's already volatile. It doesn't make good practical sense to be out here publicly mocking these men. If A is true, and this is the line that many of you are taking, then B is also true. Don't throw oil on a fire and expect that you or some other Black women and girls that we presumably are concerned about will not get burned. Good tactical sense. You don't have to agree about it, but consider what I'm saying. All right, we have a more, I think, a video you might enjoy a little bit better. It's also good tactical sense as well. All right, thank you for listening. If you stayed this long, I appreciate it. Again, we can disagree on this because I know people have a right to seek vindication. I got that. But the thing about it is, you got to remember, you have a right to do whatever you want. You also then have to deal with the consequences of whatever you want. So I'm just advising a moderate course of action. And so that, again, I don't want anybody burned. So I advise you not to throw oil on that fire that's burning as men are grieving Mr. Samuels. All right. You have a good day now. Goodbye.